Hey guys, welcome back. Today we're going to keep talking about Space Marines. But before we get started, I just want to apologize for the slightly longer break than usual. This is being recorded on June 4th, 2020, so there is a lot going on in the world right now. And it has been difficult for me to feel up to recording anything. But I'm happy to be recording this video, and we are going to start with the Indominus Crusade. When the hour was blackest and the Imperium's doom seemed at hand, there came a shining light, a beacon in a galaxy gone dark. This was what Guilliman called the Indominus Crusade, the gathering of a vast coalition of imperial forces that took the fight to the enemy and brought back a sliver of hope to hundreds of besieged planets. After the Noctis Aeterna, the citizens of many imperial worlds looked up with dread at that which pulsed unnaturally above them, fearing what might descend from the stars. Not all were cowed, however, and some endeavored to leave their isolated planets and reconnect with the wider Imperium. In the wake of the worst warp storms recorded in Imperial history, over a dozen expeditions were launched, amongst them the Aquila Crusade and the attempt to reclaim the Donlar sector by the Reviler's spearhead. Few of these ventures fared well, and some, like the ill-fated Charon Crusade, proved disastrous. There was one undertaking, however, that did more than just succeed. While the blackness fell across whole segments of the galaxy, Guilliman refined his grand strategy upon Terra. After standing before the Golden Throne, the Primarch had emerged with renewed sense of purpose. Not long after the High Lords of Terra declared him Lord Commander of the Imperium, Guilliman called for action, ordering the mustering of a mighty armada. Even as the forces of the Indominus Crusade gathered, its numbers including Space Marines from the Ultima founding, Guilliman's operation was interrupted by a demonic incursion that erupted out of a sudden warp storm. While many panicked over the breach in Terra's multi-spectrum shield defenses, the Primarch led the counterattack. None could stand before the flame-wreathed sword of the Emperor, and together the Adeptus Custodes, Sisters of Silence, and many companies of Ultramarines dismantled the threat and banished it back to the Empyrean. A formidable assemblage. On Terra, elements of the Adeptus Custodes and a contingent of the Silent Sisterhood pledged to join Guilliman's crusade. They were not alone. Upon nearby Mars, Archmagos Dominus Belisarius Call had unlocked his vaults, producing from stasis the fruits of his longest labors, the Ultima founding. To complete the full deployment of his long-prepared masterworks would take months. Call's own fleet joined the Primarch, headed by his freighter hulk, Tsar Quaesitor, a Macragge-class ship that carried within its massive hull a vast number of Primaris Marines, still in this hibernation. The Archmagos brought with him several armies of Scitari and Legio Cybernetica, alongside 3 lances of knights from House Tyrannus. With warp energies flooding the galaxy, the reach of Terra's astropathic choirs was greatly reduced, yet many loyal defenders heeded that mustering call. These included a number of Imperial Guard forces and over a score of Space Marine chapters. None volunteered more quickly than the redoubtable Imperial Fists. To transport the Imperium's soldiers came fully half of the Imperial Navy's Segmentum solar fleet. Later, en route to the Indominus Crusade's many destinations, more other Imperial forces joined, eager to bow their heads in respect before the living legend that was the fabled Ultramarines Primarch. Bringing the Emperor's light. With the Astronomicon still flickering sporadically, the Indominus Crusade risked only short jumps through the warp. They clove a path through system after system. Where worlds could be saved, Guilliman unleashed the full might of his powerful armies. Demon hordes were driven back from Gathalamor, the Drogos system, and the world of Talarn. In the Lorm reaches, the brass tyrant was cast down. The entire population of Ophelia was freed from the enslavement of the tyrant of Blue Flame, although the greater demon escaped the Emperor's justice. The befouled beast that claimed Castor was met in battle by Guilliman himself. Although the monster towered over him, it was the Primarch who emerged unharmed from that duel. Word of the Crusade's approach alone was enough to quell the rebellion on Necromunda. By the time the Imperial forces reached Catachan, all followers of the Dark Gods there had already been defeated by the local Astra Militarum. The Crusade halted there all the same for reinforcement. Despite heavy losses, the Indominus Crusade was larger when it departed Catachan than when it first left Terra. As the Indominus Crusade worked its way outwards from Terra, the worst effects of the Noctis Aeterna were already lifting across many sectors. Although warp storms still drifted out of the Great Rift, the Emperor's light was slowly burning away the formless murk of the warp throughout the galactic south. Many citizens that survived the cruel oppressions of demonic torturers saw divine correlation between the two events. Those that glimpsed the Primarch firsthand whispered that they had seen the Emperor himself, as if legends from a golden age of myths once more strode amongst them. Vid feeds and astropathic visions spread still further, allowing hope to rekindle even upon planets whose plight was desperate. Not all was triumph and glory, however. The Crusade came to many worlds that were beyond salvation. Where there was no hope, Guilliman sought instead to bring vengeance. There could be no saving the hive world of Bundar from the bubonic taint that had covered it. But once cauterized with cleansing fire, the warp disease spread no further. The demonic rituals held atop the moldering ruins of the cardinal world Glorifia was not just halted but annihilated, and there the demonic ichor ran in rivers. Not all could be avenged, however. The initial combat drop into Secundus Terra suffered ambushes and catastrophic malfunctions, having been lured into a terrible trap by the Alpha Legion. Although it pained him to do so, Guilliman made the difficult decision to pull back, skirting the whole Primogenesis system, as he could not afford to become bogged down in a long war of attrition. The Crusade's journey later saw it encounter dozens of systems in which countless Imperial citizens were left in thrall to the Dark Powers. This was a bitter reality for Roboute Guilliman, and even if the Ultramarines Primarch was given to dwelling on the Imperium's misfortunes, there would be no time to do so. Seeds of Hope. As the Indominus Crusade penetrated deeper into the galaxy, Archmago's Call kept his automaton workers on overdrive, risking meltdowns with their accelerated speeds. Locked deep in the labyrinthine holds of Tsar Quaesitor, I'll get that right the first time at some point, thousands of Primaris Space Marines, some comprising entirely new chapters, and others designated as reinforcements for existing ones, were awakened out of stasis and made ready to join the fray. On battle-scarred Rin's world, the arrival of the Indominus Crusade broke the demonic legions of the demon prince Raxor. After the fighting was done, the Crimson Fists marveled at the return of Roboute Guilliman, but were even more grateful for the arrival of Primaris Space Marines bearing their own heraldry. Here were warriors whose genetic composition was closer to their own Primarch, Rogel Dorn, than had ever before existed. For his raw material, Call had selected warriors of Terra, and had taken them only a few generations after the original Imperial Fists had been created by the Emperor. Indeed, some had been held in stasis since the days of the Great Crusade. A few of the Primaris Space Marines could recall having seen Rogel Dorn himself. Again and again the Crusaders watched the same tale unfold. When those of the Ultima founding were brought before their chapters, it was like a meeting of brothers separated at birth. Arriving at a time of great darkness and upheaval, the new warrior's strength was welcomed. Such unusual reunions were repeated on many planets, including Chogoris, Ultramar, and Baal, where the Crusade arrived even as the proud sons of Sanguinius were making what they thought to be their last stand. Despite cleaving a wide path through the darkness that beset the Imperium, the Indominus Crusade began to break down. When the vast holds of the Tsar Quaesitor were emptied, Archmago's Call departed, for he had many more secret vaults to activate in order to complete the Ultima founding. Once deployed, the new chapters, such as the Rift Stalkers or the Umbral Knights, remained after the initial conflicts were won, seeking to consolidate the Crusade's gains. In many cases, they did this by establishing their own new chapter planets. In this way, the Crusade not only freed worlds from the tyranny of the Dark Gods, but also strengthened their defenses against further attacks that were sure to come. Finally, Roboute Guilliman could no longer delay responding to the distress signals coming from his chapter's own homeworld of Ultramar, which itself was once more besieged. All Still, their triumphs were but a sliver of light piercing the ink-black void. Their many campaigns unable to reach the vast number of imperiled planets, yet it was a start. Later it was said that during the darkest hours the Imperium had endured since the Horus Heresy, it was the indominus Crusade that gave mankind the hope to persevere. The Ultramarines. Of all the Codex chapters, the most famous is the Ultramarines, because Games Workshop pushes them as hard as possible. No, just kidding. The chapter of the Primarch Roboute Guilliman himself. Their name is a byword for discipline and honor, and tales of their victories are told from their homeworld, Macragge, to the sacred halls of Terra itself. Whenever the enemies of mankind threaten the Imperium, the Ultramarines stand ready to face them. Primogenitors. The Primogenitors are those chapters created when the old Ultramarines Legion was divided during the Second Founding. Sometimes referred to as the Firstborn, these chapters each maintain their own histories and traditions, but they all honor Roboute Guilliman as their Primarch and adhere strictly to the procedures and tactical treatises he laid down in the Codex Astartes. There are conflicting records as to exactly how many Primogenitor chapters were created, but the oldest copy of the Codex Astartes lists 12. It is believed that there were a further 11 or more Primogenitors, but if they existed, their names have been lost to the passing of time, and no Space Marine chapter surviving in the 41st millennium claims the honor. Roboute Guilliman. The martial discipline, selfless honor, and peerless tactical acumen of the Ultramarines can be directly attributed to their venerated Primarch. Raised on the world of Macragge, Roboute Guilliman was tutored in a noble warrior culture from an early age. By his 10th birthday, he had studied and mastered everything the wisest men of Macragge could teach him. His insights into matters of history, philosophy, and science astonished his elders, but his greatest talent lay in the strategy, logistics, and art of war. Roboute Guilliman's youth and his meteoric rise to power are well documented. Suffice it to say that he was an unstoppable force of change, an inspirational figure who led Macragge from a time of bitter war and foul treachery into a new age of prosperity. Indeed, when the Emperor reached Macragge, he was astounded to find such a well-ordered and prosperous world, and saw at once that Guilliman was a Primarch of unsurpassed ability and vision. When the Ultramarines Legion of Space Marines was assigned to the control of Roboute Guilliman, its forward base was relocated to Macragge. The Primarch quickly assimilated the many wonders of the Imperium and set about his new role with great skill and enthusiasm. Guilliman's chief talents, as ever, lay in war, and he led the Ultramarines to fresh conquests throughout the galactic south. The worlds that Guilliman brought into the Imperium's fold were to benefit from his unsurpassed organizational skills and his passion for efficient government. Whenever Roboute Guilliman freed a world from tyranny or raised it up from ignorance, his first priority was to set up a self-supporting defense system. Once a world was defended and safe from immediate threats, he would move on, leaving behind enough advisors to ensure that a thriving industry would be created. Trading routes were set up with the Imperium, and the government was directed towards the prosperity of the people and the continual strengthening of their military forces. Although this blueprint for successful empire building has been copied many times, none have come close to equaling Roboute Guilliman's remarkable achievements. Fortress Macragge. Meanwhile, the fortifications of the Ultramarines grew on Macragge. Some Ultramarines remained behind from the Great Crusade to supervise the work, which progressed rapidly thanks to the newly established trading network and advanced industries. Within a year, a training base was established and recruiting began on the planet Macragge and surrounding worlds, which came to be called Ultramar. It was not long before the Ultramarines Legion received its first influx of warriors born and bred on Macragge. Thanks to the thoroughness of their organization, the Ultramarines were able to receive constant recruits throughout the Great Crusade. Because of their strong gene stock base and Roboute Guilliman's tactical expertise, the Ultramarines soon became the largest Space Marine Legion, having more recruits and suffering fewer casualties than any of the other legions. To my last breath and beyond, I will honor my brethren, my chapter, and my Emperor. Ultramarines Indoctrination Oath. In the wake of treachery. When the Horus Heresy plunged the Imperium into savagery and civil war, the Ultramarines were engaged on the southern edge of the galaxy. The Ultramarines' successes had carried them far from Terra, and isolated them from the conquering armies of War Master Horus in the galactic northeast. When Horus's treason was revealed, there was therefore little that Guilliman and the Ultramarines could do in support of the Emperor during the early stages of the insurrection. To make matters worse, the Ultramarines' attempts to return to Terra were greatly hampered by the traitorous Word-Bearers Legion. The Ultramarines were thus unable to join forces with the Emperor during the final, apocalyptic battle of the Horus Heresy, the Siege of Terra, in which countless thousands of loyal Space Marines sold their lives to defeat the War Master. So it was, by a bittersweet twist of fate, that the Ultramarines Legion emerged from the Horus Heresy relatively intact. It was in the wake of the Horus Heresy that the Ultramarines proved most crucial, holding the Imperium together during a time of intense danger against a galaxy of foes that would see it destroyed. With half of the Astartes legions having sided with Horus during the bitter civil war, and the other loyalist legions having lost many thousands of troops, the number of Space Marines left to defend the ravaged Imperium was very few, yet never were they more needed. The legacy of Ultramar. Macragge was able to supply new recruits at such a rate that, before long, the already vast Ultramarines Legion accounted for more than half the total number of Space Marines in the galaxy, and few were the systems where their heroism was not called upon. With the great cost in lives, slowly but surely a semblance of order was restored to the Imperium. Guilliman finished his great work on the Codex Astartes, and the second founding was begun. The Ultramarines' gene seed became preeminent during the second founding, for no other legion had the numbers or genetic banks to found as many new Space Marine chapters. The stability of the Ultramarines' gene seed has also made it the Adeptus Terra's favored choice for the founding of subsequent chapters. At the dawn of the 41st millennium, it is believed that over 2/3 of all existing Space Marine chapters are descended from the Ultramarines bloodline, the proud inheritors of their Primarch's legacy. Roboute Guilliman's lasting heritage would prove to not only be genetic, but spiritual as well. All the scions of Guilliman hold the ruler of Ultramar as the exemplar of all that it means to be a Space Marine. To date, not a single chapter master of the Ultramarines has failed to live up to the exacting standards laid down in the Codex Astartes, becoming inspirational figures not only to their own warriors, but even to those outside their chapter. In the centuries since the second founding, the Ultramarines have venerated their Primarch and stuck to the precepts, regulations, and tactical doctrines within the Codex Astartes as a priest adheres to Scripture. That Roboute Guilliman has returned to lead the Imperium's armies in the growing darkness has only reinforced his chapter's pride, which grows with every new heroic act. For over 10 millennia since their days as a legion of the first founding, the Ultramarines have tested themselves against every foe imaginable. From orc wars to renegade uprisings, Tyranid invasions to Tau incursions and awakening Necron tomb worlds, the Ultramarines have not just survived, but triumphed. In times of duty, courage, discipline, and loyalty to the Emperor, the Ultramarines serve as exemplars. There is no Space Marine chapter more honored in all of the Imperium, and rightly so. Ultramar. One aspect of the Ultramarines Legion that survived the second founding was the close relationship between the Space Marines and the populations of the surrounding planets. During the Great Crusade, the worlds around Macragge provided young recruits for the Ultramarines. They also supplied raw materials, armaments, and spacecraft. Although the scale of recruitment from these worlds diminished with the reorganization, the tradition continued. To this day, the Ultramarines recruit not from a single world, but from the whole of the area around Macragge, known as Ultramar, the stellar empire of the Ultramarines. Ultramar is unique amongst the domains of the Space Marines, where other chapters rule over a single planet, asteroid, or in some cases, a mobile space fleet or orbital fortress. The Ultramarines have a larger domain. They control a subsector including many star systems, each with its own worlds and governments loyal to the chapter. All the worlds of Ultramar share a common cultural heritage with Macragge, so it is not surprising that their styles of architecture, government, and traditions are similar. Using governmental systems set in place by Roboute Guilliman, the citizens of Ultramar are disciplined, productive, and loyal. As a result, Ultramar became a wealthy empire that knew little unrest or rebellion for long stretches of time, a unique distinction in the war-ridden galaxy. The most heavily populated of Ultramar's worlds were self-sufficient, with much trade between planets. Although composed of primarily industrial worlds, Ultramar had none of the toxic wastelands that were common phenomena throughout the galaxy. All of that was to change, however. Even before the coming of the Noctis Aeterna, Ultramar faced a series of dire threats. Tendrils of several Tyranid hive fleets drifted inexorably towards Guilliman's realm. The arch-arsonist of Caradon, one of the greatest orc warlords in the galaxy, led a monstrous war from his anarchic domain with the intent of overrunning the Ultramarines' eastern defenses. Yet the greatest threat of them all was that posed by the dark servants of chaos. A vast horde of traitors, renegades, mutants, and madmen fell upon Ultramar under the leadership of the foul demon prince Nkar, the Reborn. And then came the Noctis Aeterna, and with it wave after wave of demon-filled warp storms. In the wake of these disasters, some of the greatest servants of Nurgle, the chaos god of plagues and decay, fell upon the Ultramarines' stellar realm, seeking to corrupt the bucolic beauty of its worlds. The Plague Wars, as they came to be known, saw some of the greatest battles the Imperium had ever endured, with every inhabited planet of Ultramar suffering a staggering number of casualties. Macragge, the capital world, saw fighting across its bleak, rocky uplands, as well as its populated cities. The Ultramarines' sprawling fortress monastery, including the shrine in which Roboute Guilliman had laid in stasis for over 7 millennia, came under concerted attack. The Bubonicus legions, led by a favored great unclean one known as Kugoth Plague Father, seized the nearby Tartella system before descending upon the planet of Iax, a garden world rich with life. The Espandor system suffered beneath the creeping doom offensive of the demon Primarch, Mortarion and his Death Guard. On Parmenio, a great armor battle took place, and throughout the subsector a naval battle raged, with defensive battle stations engaged by a plague fleet led by the Death Guard known as Typhus. The Death Guard Lord known as Typhus. Even the disciplined tactics and heroic sacrifices of the defenders were only enough to stave off defeat. Nurgle's followers pushed their befouling offensive forward, contaminating all they touched. Breaking apart his indominus crusade, Roboute Guilliman returned to aid his home system. Seeing that his only chance lay in seizing the initiative, the Primarch masterminded a brilliant campaign known as the Spear of Espandor. Rapid counterstrikes and a series of daring boarding actions clawed back many of the foe's gains. Where the disparate Chaos armies fought separately, the defenders of Ultramar supported each other in every way they could, allowing Guilliman to slowly reverse the course of the war, and to put Nurgle's favored commanders on the defensive. Utilizing their superior numbers, the Chaos forces amassed for a final confrontation upon Iax. There they fought to a standstill, with Guilliman countering every ploy. Ultimately, the Chaos forces escaped under the cover of a massive virus bomb. With little time to spare, for the galaxy remained riven with war, the Lord Commander of the Imperium organized the rebuilding of Ultramar, beginning with the defense networks, before leaving once more at the head of a retributive strike force. And that is where we are going to end this video for today. Personally, the Ultramarines feel like the golden child. They're perfect in every way, and I kind of hate that. I think that's really lazy, and obviously it's just designed to get new players to be like, oh yeah, these guys are the cool guys, I want them. Oh well, I don't play 40k, and there's no, like, perfect good guys in fantasy. So, maybe that's part of why I like it. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I'll see y'all next time.